So we created tables, that is users and students, using user model and student model respectively. So today what we are going to do is basically posting data from Postman and be able to insert that data from Postman into our database, and of course we should be also able to fetch the records that we've inserted. So we created our models, so we are going to make use of our models, and we said that of course we have our two controllers that we had created previously. That is basically students controller and then teachers controller, but we created I think user controller, but anyway we can still just use students controller. It will work for us. So now last time I showed you how we can use a controller, and inside our controller we have two methods. One, get students, that is supposed to get to retrieve the list of students from database, but of course here you can see that we are using dummy data, which is basically stored in data in constant folder under data file. This is still our dummy data, where we have accountants, students and teachers. But I said that in a real world application, this data should be coming from a database, not in a hard coded file. So that's basically now what we are going to do. Instead of having these students, for example, in a file, or being stored as an array in a file, which is hard-coded data. In this case, we shall be returning this data from what? From a database. Also, when we are posting data, we are just doing the console.log. So we can test. First of all, we go to our Postman, and you look at School API, and when you open create student, and then you post this data. Okay, we need to first start our API, so it is npm run local. That's our customer command for running our application. So when I do this, and then I send a request from basically students create, and then I send, realize that we have this data being returned. So if you look at this, you can see student data on the console. Yeah, here we have the ID, we have the name, we have age, we have DOB, which is date of birth. So in this case, we can access the data in our controller from what? From Postman. So it is at this point that we are going to get this data that we are now writing on the terminal, we are logging on the terminal, and we post this data to the database so that we can see that the student has been recorded in a what? Has been recorded in the database. Now, when you come back and look at our model, which is basically student, you realize that we need columns. We have columns ID, student number, then registration number, then name, then program, and then date of birth. So what we can do is, first of all, student number, I think registration number must be unique. So if you want to make a column unique, you just come and put unique, then you put true. Yeah. Also the registration number should be unique, so you put unique, then also you make it true. Yeah. So that's how you can make a column unique, because they should not have duplicate student numbers. A student number should be unique, should only belong to one student. Yeah. So that's why I'm putting unique. So to reflect on these changes, I probably can, since we don't have any data in a database, you can delete the table and then run the application again to regenerate the table. Or else, if at all we had the data there, only we had to, there was no option other than creating a migration. Let's say that you've already created a table in the database and it already contains data, but you're making changes to the columns. So you do those changes to the columns through creating migrations. Yeah. But in this case, since we don't have data populated in our table, we can just truncate. We can just delete the table and then start the application again, and then the table will be automatically generated by the application. So I will come here and click delete. I can actually delete both. Let me see for students if we need to make any. No, we don't need any unique column. You can see we've deleted students. So if I start the application again, we should be able to have the students table generated back. So if I refresh, just come here and refresh, you see we have students. And when you come to properties to see the structure, properties like the structure, when you look at the structure, you have student number, registration number, name, program, date of birth. So when you look at the column, yeah, student number and registration number, you look at key, you can see that you have UNI, which means it is unique. PRI means it is primary, which is ID. Then student number, when you look at student number, registration number, you have UNI, which means that those columns are unique. So in this case, we can go ahead, since we've enforced our constraints on our table, which are reasonable because student number and registration number must be unique. So we can go ahead and use our models or use our model student to create tables, to make sure that we can populate data in a database. So there's what we call exception handling in in programming. Of course, I'm sure you guys have gotten a chance to hear about exception handling. Exception handling, it is where you embed functionality in your application to make sure that in case an application encounters an error, then that error is handled gracefully. In a sense that when we say that the application handles the error gracefully, it means that when the application encounters an error, it will not cause the application to break down or to stop. So that's what we mean by handling the error gracefully. It means you've written your functionality very well to make sure that in case the application encounters an error, it will not break down. Because if it breaks down and people are using your application, people will, the app will no longer be in use. People will be encountering issues. The system is down. Why? Because you've encountered an error that you did not handle gracefully. So we use what we call try catch. Use try catch block to make sure we able to to handle these errors. So we can say throw error, and here we put back our code. So within a try, you put the code that you expect to run very well without errors. The code you hope will have to run like very well or successfully. In the catch block, you put the code that has to be run in case the application encounters error. So in case you have this code is the one that is expected to run successfully or the one that is expected to run without errors. But in case it encounters error, then the error will be thrown to the catch block, and the catch block is the one which is going to handle that error. But in this case, we are saying throw that error, meaning that whenever it is encountered, it is going to be sent as a response back to the user. Now at this point we have data, so we can use our models to make sure that we insert this data in the database. So we are going to import our models, so we can say constant models, and then we say require, then we say I think we have database, then we have models. So in this case we have the index file. We can use the index file since the index file is the one with all the models here, yeah. But if you don't want this, you can we can literally import, like get directly what the student model, yeah, only the student model. So we can say stock student model, and then we change this one, we make it constant student model student, which is our model now, because you are getting it directly from models, then what student. So to create a record in the database, we have to make sure that we get the data. So if you look at what our database constitutes as the columns, we need student number, we need the let me come back, student number, registration number, name, program, date of birth. So we need to create an object, so we can say constant student maybe details. So we need we can make this one as payload request.body. Of course, request.body gets the contents of the request, basically the body object. So the first one we need is student number, so we hope that payload we'll have the student number. Then you have the registration number. So the keys are the columns in the databases. Then these values are the ones being returned from Postman. So you can say payload dot registration number. Then the next column that we have is name of the student, so name, and then we say payload dot name. Then next is program, so we can say program. Then we say payload dot program. And then next we have what else do we have? We have, I think, date of birth. Yes, date of birth. So we can say date of birth, so which is payload dot dob. So I want to show you that this is supposed to be student details. Not necessary that this key student number must be the same as payload the student number. No, this one that you put here first, which is the key, is the column name. So when you look at our database, we have the column name as student number. That's why when you go back to students, we have student number. So that's why here you must put the column name. But here it is not a must that it must be student number here. It can be student what? Number. Then you need to make sure that if you put if the payload, the key that is coming from the payload is student number, then you need to make sure that in Postman here, yeah, you also have student number here. Then you put the number, maybe 5 can be ISB, then 100 as the student number. I think it's a string, yeah, it's a virtual. Then registration number, not a must that it also must be this. We can say, you can write the full word, registration number, something like that, or you say reg number. So all I wanted to show you is, I don't want you guys to cram that whatever is here as the key is what must be here. No, this one is basically the key in Postman, only in request, and this one is just these are column names. These keys are just the column names. So here we have registration number, so we need to put in here our registration number. So maybe we can say R2001. Then when you look at next is the name. We already have the name, I think, here. I name is Derek. And then here we have the next. We don't have age, so we can just come here. If you want to delete, you come here and click this delete. There is this button delete, so you click and it gets deleted. Then we don't need ID because it's primary key, so we come here also delete this one. So we need the name, the DOB, what else, the program as well. We need program, so we can come here and put program. Then we say computer science. Then after that we have the date of birth. Actually it's DOB. In this case it's DOB. Remember, you look at the keys here if you're getting data from Postman. So we have student number, registration number, name, program, DOB. So how many are they? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you look at Postman, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can reorganize them based on how, if you want to. It's not a must. So you can put student number as a first one. So you just click on it, you put it up. You click here, then registration number as the second. You put it up as well after the student number. Then name, after name you have program and DOB. Program comes this first. So it's not a must that you must reorganize them in any order. The data will get it will reflect, but of course I like being organized. So this is basically what we have now. So if we now come here and we post now, we have not yet created algorithm that is going to post into our database, but we want to check if we are really getting these details, like if we have these details, yeah, the student details. So if we post, we should be able to see our response now. You can see we have the student number, registration number, name, program, date of birth. So you can see even we have values, the key and the value, yeah, which we've put as our, as our request body in Postman. So that means if you look at the console as well, you can see we have student number, registration number, name, program, date of birth, yeah. So you can see that we have these values. So at this point we can go ahead and post these details in a database. Of course, we see that now we have the values that we want in our database: the registration number, the student number, name, program, date of birth. They created that and updated that. You don't need them since they are timestamped, so they automatically populate themselves there. So to create the record, one is you have to use the model. So we can say constant, you say result equals result of creating, you say student, which is the model which we've imported in here, student, then dot create. You can see there's a function create, and then it takes in a value, yeah, and usually it is an object. When you visit like SQLize's documentation here, you can always check. I told you can always check the documentation, like simple insert queries. How do you insert? Use await, the model user, then dot create. Then what you have inside is a JSON of your data, and we have this JSON already from our Postman, which is student details. So you basically put here student dot create, then you put the data that you're going to insert, which is basically in this case the student record details, yeah, which you put here. But you see it takes, there is a time lag when you send a request. Like let me give you this analogy. When you go to a restaurant and you ask for food, they don't just give that food in a second. They don't give you food in just 1 second. You have to wait for a minute for the chefs to first prepare and do that, and then they give you the food later. So in the same case here, when you say you want to post data to the database, there is that time the record has to get inserted in the database. So there's a time lag. There is what we call a latency, small latency. So you have to say wait. You have to use await. Await is like waiting. You first wait for this record to be inserted in the database. Like this student.create. When you say create, it does not automatically get created. There is like a short time lag. So you have to wait for it before you can proceed with the subsequent processing of data. So, and the reason as why you're seeing the error here, there is what we call, when you await, you have to sync. So you use the async await. You put here async on your function. You put async. Async means that it is not happening at the same time. Like you have to wait. When you say the things are in sync, it means they are happening like at the same time, concurrently, like there's no time lag. But if there is async, it means that you have to wait. There is a time lag. So in this case, when you say await, means that this process is going to take, that you're going to wait for some period of time for this task to get executed, or for this record to get inserted in the database. So after it has inserted, what we can do is if result, yeah, then we can say we can send a message here. We return a message. We say student, and then we put the student name who has been created. We say has been inserted successfully. Yeah, meaning that we've created, actually it's period.name, because that's where we are getting the name. So you can say student period.name has been inserted successfully. Then else, in case it has not been inserted, we can say return the message that student records has not been created, so as simple as this. So at this point, if we This is how you can this is how you post data into your what? Into your database. First of all, we've gotten our details of the student from records.body, which is basically our payload. So we have gotten the student number, registration number, name, program, and date of birth. Yeah. So to create a record in the database, we use the model, and our model is called the student. Then we use a function called create. Then it takes in a parameter, which is basically the details of the details that you're going to post in the database. So we have student details where you have the student number, registration number, name, program, and date of what? Date of birth. So if the result, meaning that if it is successful, if the record has been inserted, yeah, then we say student, then the name of student has been inserted successfully. Else, then we return a message, student has not been created, has not been created. So let's post. In this case, when you look at our table, it is empty. There's no record. Let's post and see. This is our student. So if we click send, here, let me see, it should okay, return. Okay, let's post and see. First check that we don't have any record. So we have actually have the record inserted successfully. We have this and this. So you can see the details have been successfully inserted in a database. You have the registration number, you have the student number, you have registration number, you have name as a number as direct program computer science. But we've not received our message. Probably let me check why. Oh yeah, because we are supposed to send response.send, not basically returning a message. Yeah, so we need to make sure that we can take in the response so that we send back the response. So we are going to go back to we need the response object so that we can send back the response. So if you look at our route students here, so you're going to also okay, the issue is here. It's because this one is not waiting, so it's sending data directly. So we need to put a async here on our route to tell that this method create student is also going to wait for some short period of time, because as I've explained, this async create student is waiting on creating the student. So when you come to student here, we need to wait. If you do this, it means that it's going to respond directly, but it's not responding directly because this create student, it is taking some time on creating a record in the database. So what you do, you also put await here. You put async before the callback, and then you put await here. Yeah, you put await here. So in this case, we should be able to get now a appropriate message. So we are going to put SB1, then we put 2, and then we put Okot, then Abertson, and then maybe we say the program is computer engineering, and then we can change the date of birth, maybe to 2000. Yeah. So now we are going to create. We've already inserted student, Derek. But now we are going to insert another one called Abertson or Cot. So of course I've changed the registration number and the student number, all these details, to make sure that they are unique to our student Okot Abertson. So if I send, you can see now we have a message. Message student Okot Abertson has been inserted successfully. So if you check in the database, if you refresh here, you can see we have our second student called Okot what? Okot Abertson. Yeah. So we can insert another one. So you can see that our code is working perfectly, as in we can post data from Postman and then it goes directly into the database. Maybe the student number is 2. Maybe here it is 3. Maybe it is Titus Migade. And then the course we can say maybe software engineering. Yeah. So if we post, and maybe you can change date of birth, maybe to 2005. We also change the maybe 12. So if we send a request now, you can see student Titus Magade has been inserted successfully. If you check our database here and you refresh, you can see we have Titus here, software engineering, and he is these details. So you can see we are posting now data. We now have, you know, records being inserted in our table students or in our database using Postman. So let us do a recap on how we've achieved that. First, we've gone to our controller. We've imported our model student from our models, this directory, because our models exist in a database, then models. That's why we have this student, yeah. Models, then student. Then inside here, we first gotten the details from the request.body, yeah. So this payload is where we have the student number, the registration number, the name, the program, the DOB. I need to reckon this, that the key must be the field name or the column name, this one. But this one must be the key which is in the Postman. As you can see, we have student number, registration number. Student number, then registration number. And this one, student number and reg number, these are just, if you look at this, student number, then reg number. These are columns in our databases, Then of course, we've said to create the record, you use student, then the model, then the function, which is create, and then you put the details that you want to submit, which are student details. Then you've said you have to wait for this function to execute, because it does not happen automatically, because there is some time, like it takes a bit of time in processing that data, in inserting that data. So that's why we're using this await keyword, and then async await. You prefix your function with async keyword, then while you're executing the method, you put await. So if it is executed successfully, we return a message which is in JSON, message student, then the name of student has been inserted successfully. Else, if it has not been inserted, you say student record has not been created. And of course, we've said you need to make sure that you put your functionality or your code in a try catch block, so that in case it encounters an error, then that error can be handled gracefully. Yeah. So that's how basically you can create records. Then let's look at how we can fetch these records. How do we fetch these students that we've inserted in our database? Yeah. So the same thing, we are going to use our model student. Yeah. Here we are using hard-coded data from data file, but in this case we're using our model. We need to get these details from our database, so we need to also use our model. Then we say model.find. there is a function called find all. Yeah, find all. And if you want, you can put options. Even SQLize, if you visit SQLize, you'll always find these methods. Yeah. So like you see find all, yeah, find all users. In this case for us, we want to find all what? We want to find all students, yeah. So find all students. Then here, what we are doing was to insert student records, or student record, or insert student, yeah. So to fetch details from database, use a function find what? All. Find all. So you're finding all. It also takes time to fetch from the database. So here you also have to use a key await, and then you make sure you prefix your function with async. Yeah. So the same thing must happen with so we put async and then await. Also in your routes, yeah? Remember in our routes here, when we are creating, we also had to prefix our callback with async await. Also here, when you are fetching, because when you're fetching from database takes some short time, so you also need to prefix your function with async. Then you have to put await, or where you're making a method call. Yeah. So in this case, we should be able to get the results with our students' records. Yeah. So it's also good to make sure that you put your code in try catch. So you put try then you put catch block so that in case your code encounters an error, at least that error can be handled very well. So you put, then you just throw error. Yeah, so basically this. So if come here and we go to get our endpoint get students, yeah, get students, which is basically this get students. So I will send a request. So when I send a request, I want even to max this so that you see what this is being returned. You can see we are having our data is being returned from a database. We have an member as Derek, computer science. We have Okot Albertson, computer engineering. We have Titus Megade, software engineering. These are the codes which we started in our database, and you can see they are being what returned. So that's basically of course when you visit our database, these are the ones that we have you know, I remember was Derek, we have Okot Albertson, we have Titus Megade. Yeah, so let's insert another student, and then we fetch, we see if we're able to receive the data of that student, newly inserted student. So we're going to put maybe 3 here, we put 4, then we call this student Deus Mwetise. Yeah, and then we say maybe the course is bachelor's, we can say cyber security. Yeah, and we can just change of birth to make sure yeah, it's quite unique, maybe 2003, and maybe 01, and maybe here you can say 03. So if let's insert, if we insert, you can see student Deus Mwetis has been inserted successfully. When you check in our database, you can see we have Deus Mwetis here, cyber security. If we go to fetch, if we fetch our students, we should also have, right now we don't have Tita, we don't have Deus, we have 3. But when we fetch again, if we send a request again, we can see that we have Deus Mwetise cyber security. So that's basically it. So today I wanted to show you how you can post, or you can create a student in the database, or you create student record in the database, and also fetch those students. You can go ahead and since we had created another model called user, you can now also make sure you do an example, or you post, because we already have that table called users in our database, yeah, where you have first name, last name, date of birth, DOB. So make sure you also create a user controller, and then you're able to post data just like we've posted data for students, and also you fetch those users from database. So that's basically it, what I wanted to show you, you know, what I wanted us to look at today. So in the next session, we shall look at how do we update data. We've already created our students, but maybe you know, we inserted the wrong date of birth for Okot Albertson, or we inserted a wrong program for I remember was there. How do we update data? And also how do we delete? So today we've seen how we post, or how we create a record in database, and how we fetch those records. In our next session, we shall see how to update data and how to delete, and that will basically be almost the, you know, so almost the end of, you know, our API session. So that's basically it. I invite questions, if any. I invite questions, if any. Okay, for now, let me first, you know, be able to close our session. For the people who are going to follow up, I close it from here. So I hope you guys have seen how we've done this. Get students using using a method find all in the model, and then also create, which on the model as well, where we input the, you know, the student details. So yeah, that's basically it. Our today's session for today. Yeah, so we've seen how to get and also how to create. So that's basically it.